Hello everybody, time to have another look at an old Commodore 64 game from my collection. This one is Frogger 64. You can have a look at the front cover there. It's one of the earliest games that I had. It was released in 1983 by Interceptor Micros. I would imagine I would have got this game in about 1984, one of the first games that I had. I played it quite a bit, I think just because I didn't have a lot of other games. As you can imagine by looking at the cover, and probably the name gives it away, this is a clone of the arcade game Frogger, an unlicensed clone, which was quite common back in the day. It was a bit like the Wild West. People would make versions of arcade games, Space Invaders, Asteroids, Frogger, with no concern being given to the fact that these were licensed, trademarked properties. Obviously, that's all changed fairly quickly, but you still see a lot of these old games are basically just Donkey Kong or Frogger or Space Invaders, Galaxian with a different name. And this one, to be fair, they've not even bothered giving a different name, just stuck a 64 at the end. And we see here the cover. There's a crack in the case. Should probably look at getting a replacement for that. Have a wee look at the tape. As you can see, they've used the official, this official Commodore logo for the 64. Grammar pendants, of course, will be immediately triggered by the fact that they have for some reason, they put a little extraneous apostrophe in the Interceptor Micros there. Don't know what that's all about. Quite basic label there on the tape. Closer look at the inlay card. The cover is, this is probably something you would see in a book nowadays. So how not to design a eye-catching cover for a game like this. The colours that they've used just don't pop at all. From a distance, you wouldn't be able to read any of that. From the side, it's a bit better, but quite clearly, Frogger 64 by Interceptor Micros has some instructions there. To load, hold down Shift and press Run Stop. The program will automatically load and run. That's nice. When the program has loaded and run, stop the tape deck. They're quite emphatic about that, so make sure that you do that. Instructions, quite a simple game. It's basically just Frogger. Keyboard or joystick may be used to guide your frog first across the busy main road and then across the river to safety. However, it is not that simple. It never is. The cars will try to run you down and squash you. And once you get past them, you must be careful not to slip and drown in the water. Now here's a bit about Frogger that always confused me. Why is the frog drowning in the water? It's a frog. It's amphibious. It can swim. It never made any sense. Surely they could have had, something else that would have made more sense than that. But anyway, this is tradition. This is Frogger tradition. The frog drowns if it goes in the water. So while you're hopping over the logs and turtles, you fall in the water, you will drown. Bonuses. Lady frogs may be hopped onto for a bonus. Now this seems a bit adult for a game presumably aimed at young children. Hopping onto lady frogs for a bonus. And flies may be eaten also for a bonus score. What to do? Try to hop into all the bays at the top of the screen. Oh, you know what? It's Frogger, isn't it? You get in the wee bits at the top, and then once you got all 5, you go on to the next screen. And there you go. Once you lose all your 3 lives, the game ends. But you get a bonus life every 10,000 points. Written by A. Chalice in machine code. And this was something that you'll see in a lot of older games. The machine code, basically just pointing out that it's not written in BASIC. They have actually worked out how to program the computer properly, and the game will run reasonably quickly. Obviously, you don't see that so much nowadays, but back then, a lot of people were actually, believe it or not, publishing and asking for money for games simply written in BASIC. So that's the inlay card, and this is the cassette. Shall we have a look at the game, Frogger 64? I think we shall. And here is Frogger 64. Quite a nice title screen here actually, with the letters coming down and moving about. For 1983, for an early game like this, I'm actually quite impressed with this. not really what I was expecting. Expect something probably a wee bit more basic, but this is actually quite nice. Actually quite a nice attract mode. So let's get into the game. You start the game here, and you're just moving your frog along. Now, for some reason, the sound on this emulator isn't working, but hopefully get that fixed for next time. But we'll just have to make do for now. It's just Frogger. It's quite a nice version. The graphics are quite bright, quite clear. The frog's quite nice defined. And again, for such an early game, for 1983, it seemed fairly impressive at the time. And as I say, I did play this one quite a bit. Didn't have many games at the time, but this is a perfectly passable version of Frogger and quite enjoyable. Quite nice graphics on the cars there, different types, the trucks, the logs and the turtles. It's very clear what everything's supposed to be, and the gameplay is exactly what you'd expect. Just have to get your frog across the road, across the river, and then into the little bays at the top. So we'll just try and complete this first level. See a wee bit more about what the game has to offer. The first level's pretty basic. Cars are moving quite slowly. The logs are pretty regular. There's none of the additional bonuses, the lady frogs or the flies or any of the stuff that's promised in the instructions. So that's us finished the first level. Got all our little frogs at the top, and here we see the second level straight away. You can see occasionally there's a bonus fly appears in the little bays at the top, and we also have a crocodile appearing randomly in place of one of the logs. So the trick is, don't jump on the crocodile. And see there, just before I jumped in that last bay there, you'll see that the frog started flashing. There's a little timer up there in the top right hand corner. When that gets to 0, you lose a life. So there is a little bit of pressure on trying to get across quickly. Don't exactly know what happened there. Did I miss something there? Is there something on that turtle? Don't know why I lost a life there. But generally speaking, collision detection, it's quite good. When you die, generally, I don't know what happened there, but generally speaking, you know that you've missed something and that you've... Oh, better jump back here. As you see again, there's a frog flashing. When the timer gets to 0, you would lose a life, but just managed to get in there. And we'll try and complete this screen, go on to the next one, and see if we can see a bit more about what the game has to offer. There's not too much to it. It is just basically Frogger. As I say, it is quite a passable version. So let's just keep going for a little bit here. Try and just see if we can get a little bit further into the game. As I say, it's basically just a clone of the arcade game, so there's nothing exciting about it, not too many additional features, but for the time, this is something that I certainly get a lot of play out of, and I can imagine a lot of people for 1983. This is quite passable. Now we've finished the second level there, on to level 3, and you see the cars moving a little bit faster, make it a little bit more difficult. A bit more gaps in the logs. And there we go, the lady frog. We'll jump on lady frog, get our bonus. And another little interesting thing, once you jump on lady frog, your frog turns pink. So, don't know what that's all about. Sadly, when you go in a little bit at the top, you go back to being green again. But I think that's just to indicate that you have scored the bonus. And then you see a little snake there. Oh, just missed that turtle there. See a little snake in the little centre line there, just an additional little enemy. Just to make it a little bit more difficult. And then see a crocodile poking his face out there in the bay at the top. And that's about the extent of the variations that you'll see. Lady frog again, jump on, get our bonus. And we've only got one life left, so no. I think that's our game over. We've seen, I think, most of everything that there is to see. It's quite an interesting game, quite fun. Just a basic clone of Frogger, but it's pretty well done for 1983. And I think if you bought this at the time, which obviously I did, you'd be quite pleased with it. Obviously you can put your name in the high score table. Then it's just back to the title screen. And if you leave the title screen for a while, eventually you will get to see that high score table. So we'll just have a look at that before we stop. So all in all, I'd say this was quite a good version of Frogger for the time, and it's certainly something that may be worth checking out if you're interested in seeing an early version of Frogger. And here you see the title screen. It was a nice little touch with the frog floating across and going up there. As I say, the presentation of the game for the time, pretty good, and all in all, it's quite a nice version of the game. So that was Frogger 64. Not the best game, but a reasonably competent version of Frogger for 1983 on the Commodore 64. Obviously totally unlicensed. And as I say, this is one that I played a fair bit, just because it did exactly what it said in the tin. You know, it was a version of Frogger, which was a game that I knew about from the arcades, and it was very popular at the time, and it worked, did what it's supposed to do, and it was perfectly serviceable for a game 1983, 1984. Very simple. Again, it's not one that I would imagine people will have on their top 10 all-time games, but as a piece of Commodore 64 history, a piece of my own gaming history, it's something I remember quite fondly. Thanks for watching.